Monday, December 12th, Board of Control. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Calling the roll for the Monday, December 12, 2022 Board of Control meeting. It is 11 a.m. We have Councilwoman Nan Baker. Here. Councilman Dale Miller.
Here.
Trevor Meckler serving as alternate for Purnell Jones Jr.
Here.
Melanie Say serving as alternate for Mike Dever. Mike Chambers serving as alternate for Armin Budish.
Here.
Paul Porter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from December 5th. I will make a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The minutes are approved. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, let the record show that Ms. Lee Tucker is in attendance, and let's go on to our first item, please.
First item, new item for review, BC 2022-758, Department of Public Works submitting a revenue generating agreement via contract number 2936 with City of Seven Hills in the amount not to exceed $400,000 for maintenance and repair of storm and sanitary sewers located in County Sewer District Number 2 for the period January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023.
Good morning, Melanie Say, Department of Public Works. This is our annual direct bill agreement with the City of Seven Hills for just sanitary and sewer maintenance work. We anticipate to be reimbursed for up to $400,000 for next year.
Thank you, Melanie. Are there questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Macular. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item?
Next item, BC 2022-759, Department of Development submitting an amendment to a contract with City of Lakewood to provide various emergency rental assistance services to income-eligible tenants in connection with the Emergency Rental Assistance 1 program for the period October 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $300,000, effective upon signature of all parties.
Good morning, Sarah Parks Jackson with the Department of Development. This is an amendment to the City of Lakewood's contract that we gave to them for emergency rental assistance. The original contract we gave to the city at their request because they had been using their own ARPA dollars to provide emergency rental assistance and wanted to continue the program. They have subsequently asked us for additional funds, knowing that the ERA $1 will expire on 12/29. So we wanted to give them the additional $300,000 to serve Lakewood residents.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Are there questions from the board? Councilman, please.
This item provides much-needed money for my district, so I'm going to move for approval.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-760, Department of Information Technology, on behalf of the County Prosecutor's Office, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in an award recommendation to Integrated Precision Systems Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $7,819 for a state contract purchase of 2 card readers and 1 security camera to be installed on the video surveillance system located at the Halley Warehouse, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Janelle Green, Department of IT. Again, this purchase is on the behalf of the county prosecutor. This is to add 2 card swipes and a security camera for an entrance and exit that is being used by the Internet Crimes Against Children, which is why it's funded by the prosecutors.
Okay, Janelle, thank you. Are there questions from the board? Mr. Mackler.
Janelle, do you know what floor they're on over at the Halley Warehouse?
I do not know that. I can get that information and let you know.
I believe it's 5.
5, okay.
Okay.
Did they just recently move in, or have they been there for a while?
No,
They just recently moved in, fairly
in
recently.
the past year.
Thank you.
Sure. Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Paul Porter. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
Next, item BC 2022-761, Department of Information Technology submitting an RFP exemption which will result in a payment to AT&T Corporation in the amount of $19,956.53 for reconciliation of Centrex telephone and messaging services invoices received between June 16, 2016 through October 22, 2022, and recommending a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Janelle Green, Department of IT. I would like to also update the record to reflect that it's also inclusive of long distance. So the issue with these particular invoices was that there were short pays that happened over a long period of time, dating back to 2016. And just while we had some dispute in terms of services with AT&T that we've been reconciling over the last couple of months to, come to an agreement point. Centrex and long distance, those agreements that we have with AT&T have run out of money, and thus we are coming and approaching this board for approval for these payments. That amendment for additional funds and extension is being worked on with AT&T, but we needed to approach you at this time to get these last few invoices paid. This $19,956.53 is representative of 24 different accounts that we have with AT&T. We have hundreds of accounts with AT&T, but these are representative of 24 of them that needed to be paid via this method.
Okay, Janelle, thank you. Questions? Councilman Miller, please.
Does this resolve all outstanding issues and bring us up to date?
This will bring us up to date. I won't say everything is completely resolved because this is an ongoing issue. Our billing, again, is by individual lines. So what we want to do is consolidate by service with AT&T. So Centrex is one bill, long distance is one bill, and one bill for each of the contractual services with AT&T. So this will be an ongoing effort and constantly monitored by the IT department.
So it sounds like you still want to make some system improvement.
Oh, absolutely.
But it does clear out everything that was past due, is that
Right.
correct?
Well, for this part, there was other work that happened on behind the scenes too. So yes, it was a several-month effort to try to clear up the issue. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Additional questions? Councilwoman, please.
So, in your response, you mentioned that we did not know the depth of the issues until the former manager of these services left. So what safety net do you have that when managers or one person of a very large department leaves, that things don't fall through the cracks? I mean, that seems to be probably the biggest issue here of
Which absolutely was. So what we've done is the person that is now owner of the responsibility is that we have a tracking system in which he is going through and verifying and validating the charges and the lines that we have. This is going to be a bigger project, so we need to validate location of lines and things like that in order to ensure that we're properly paying out and for invoices for these services. But it's not specifically just with one person now. It's in our ticketing system, so we can monitor what is happening, and it's for greater transparency versus just one person just monitoring that.
So the person that replaced this person, if they were weak in their duties to do what they needed to do in oversight, you believe that you have a system in place now that would have caught it?
Right. So what also happens in this process is that when we go through and get bills, if there is an anomaly, some sharp increase that is happening, we have a discussion point with that manager, which my team usually will see to see what is happening, why was there a fluctuation, what's going on, in order to be able to better monitor what is happening, which wasn't done before, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that's good. 6 years is a long time to have to go back and...
Yes, it was a very
So-
daunting task, but we the team muscled through it.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure, absolutely. Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved as amended. Let's make sure for that extra language, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item.
Next, item BC 2022-762, Department of Information Technology submitting an RFP exemption which will result in award recommendation to One Spar Q LLC and the amount not to exceed $74,500 for staff augmentation services for the Enterprise Resource Planning System for the period December 5th, 2022 through May 5th, 2023, and recommended contract with said RFP exemption.
Good morning again. Janelle Green, Department of IT. This is a staff augmentation services contract with OneSpark to provide some assistance for the ERP. This is specifically for the payroll and WFM modules. As you know, and I've probably presented maybe a dozen times at this point, there's been some struggle in getting technology assistance in the ERP in terms of permanent employment with the county. We've had a number of people leave and had a hard time filling these positions. And we have reached out to this particular vendor to assist us in that. We had been using some time and material staff augmentation with Infor. And we are ending that agreement and getting with this particular a contractor who serves as it's a sharp decrease. The Infor contract was about $225 to $250 an hour for technical services. This is a $145 an hour for technical services. We'd like to see this go if we can get the technical assistance on staff that we need. But until we reach that point, we are presenting this for your approval.
Thank you, Janelle. Questions? Councilman Miller?
If you were to find the appropriate staff to perform these services, would one person be sufficient or would it require more than one?
Not serving as a direct leader over that, I would say 2 people would be a wise decision in case, you have backup and things like that. I think 2 people would be sufficient to cover it. Right now, this contract is representative of 1 individual for right now.
And it looks like this is a 5-month contract?
Yeah, it's about 6 months contract with an option to renew, again, with the hopes that we are attracting talent.
So you're talking about $150,000 on an annual basis?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Are there additional, Mr. Mackler, please?
Janelle, how many hours a week do we get the staff for? Is it 40? They're used as needed, or?
It's about 20 to 25 is what we're thinking the average is. There may not be work for him to do. This is very specific tasks that we have in there, largely surrounding around if there's a changeover in a contract with a CBA or something like that, or if there's some kind of technical piece that our team can't really try to resolve on their own. So we're thinking about 20 to 25 initially. Again, it's by the task, and our ERP director will decide, how often they utilize this person's time. Right now, we are doing the transition again from Infor to this staff, so it's moving away from that. So right now, it's gearing that person up to do the tasks.
So, Janelle, to that point, are we still at the point where we need Infor or this staff person if there are changes in CBAs or anything? We don't have the staff yet within the IT department to be able to make those changes?
Right. We don't really have that technical skill set on staff. And again, it hasn't been for lack of trying. And right now, a lot of that is happening. We're trying to get away from, we want to get away from utilizing contractors for that. So we're doing the best that we can with the staff that we have.
Councilwoman, please.
And of course, the ERP leadership is all in favor of this. They've approved this and put this through, and
yes.
They know this person is
Yes.
coming.
Right. So they also did interviews. So there was a long list of companies that our ERP director, Bob Knoll, interviewed them, asking them very targeted, specific questions. So to see if these companies could fulfill that role, and this was the most qualified of those interviewees.
And is this an as-needed? If you didn't need them at all, would we still be paying for it?
No, if we didn't need them at all, we would, decrease the hours, but we're figuring 20 to 25 hours a week.
So it's up to, not to exceed 74.5.
Correct.
Okay. All right, good luck, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Melanie Say. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item, BC 2022-763, Court of Common Pleas Corrections Planning Board submitting a grant award from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance in the amount of $700,000 for the implementation of a mental health adult drug court docket pilot program in connection with the fiscal year 2022 Adult Drug Court Discretionary Grant Program for the period October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2026.
Good morning, Linda Lagoonzad, co-administrator with the Corrections Planning Board. The Common Pleas Court manages a mental health and developmental disabilities program initially created to address offenders with serious mental health illnesses or developmental disabilities entering the criminal justice system. It has grown to 5 dockets and annually serves about 435 clients, 100% which exhibit co-occurring diagnoses for both mental health and substance use disorders. 75% of those clients hold felony convictions. In October 2021, the court received a 4-year, $700,000 grant award from the Bureau of Justice Assistance, October 2022, and to modify one of these 5 mental health dockets and to adopt an adult-based drug court model. The intent is to serve on an annual basis about 50 clients, or over the 4-year grant period, 200 clients. To be eligible for this court, individuals must be high risk and high need and exhibit those co-occurring disorders. The Mental Health Adult Drug Court Docket is a pilot program, so it is partnering with some of the best providers in the area who understand co-occurring disorders. That's Signature Health and Catholic Charities Matt Talbot facility. And the program also is being evaluated by Dr. Jeff Kretschmar from Case Western Reserve University, who also evaluates our domestic violence court. So Thrive Peer Recovery Services also providing peer support services, and that's supported by another BJA grant that we have through the court. This program is currently in its planning phase, and we will be coming forth shortly with some contracts to support those providers. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McAleer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-764, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, submitting an amendment to a master contract with the Centers for Families and Children for short-term emergency child care for children in the county's custody for the period September 1st, 2022 through July 31st, 2024, to change the scope of services and terms effective upon signature of all parties. No additional funds required.
Good morning, Marcos Cortez with Health and Human Services on behalf of Children and Family Services. Again, this is a contract amendment with the Centers for our Short-Term Emergency Child Care Program to make some changes to the scope and allow for specifically an advance to the provider. As most of you are probably aware, we executed an emergency purchase to get this provider and 3 others under contract so we could specifically get the program with the centers moving. The centers proposed a unique concept called T-Suites that would accept our kids needing emergency placement and provide a unique experience to them, along with concierge services to meet their needs. So part of the proposal was a build out of some space within their newly acquired partnership with the Cleveland Christian Home. Unfortunately, neither party anticipated the build out and startup costs in the original contract, so we're trying to rectify that here with this amendment.
Okay, thank you, Marcos. Questions? Councilman?
My wife is employed by the centers, and so I'm going to recuse on this item.
Absolutely. Any additional questions? Trevor, please.
Marcos, so we're just advancing, I think it's like 660,000 or so.
$666,666.67.
Wow.
Right, right? Then, so do they just take off then when they're caring for a child? They won't bill us for those?
So
until-
part of the language in the contract change was to specify where these dollars were gonna go, so we'll get invoices related to the advance. So there are no children actually because they're not done setting up the program.
But I guess then, are we paying for, is the 666 paying for the build out? And then we're gonna get a credit when they're, have our kids in custody, or are we actually just paying for the build out? And then on day one, if there's a child there, we're gonna get a separate invoice for that?
Correct. So we're paying for the build out, and there's also furnishings that need to go into this. There's staff they're gonna hire that's gonna be, that before even kids get in there, that they're getting on board and training. So the specific costs related to the invoice, and then when we're open, we'll be getting invoices related to the kids, the beds that are available actually. There'll be 8 beds total.
Is there anything in the contract related to the furnishings or any computers or anything, since we're paying for it? Is that county property then, or, I think this is fairly unique where we're paying for the build out for a third party.
A third party, the build out is for, with the centers. I mean, the Cleveland Christian Home is part of the centers.
Right, but we're paying for them to build out their own space, right, with the $666,000, and that's unique in terms of, usually that's part of the per diem or whatever that we pay, but here we're specifically giving them build out costs and not getting a credit for it when they are taking care of the county, the children in county's custody.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure if I have a good answer for you on that.
And are we able to, I mean, I don't know if we know that answer, but can we pay for I mean, it's not county property.
This is Jared Zabrotowski from the Law Department. I actually have a conflict with this item as well, so I can refer this to somebody in my office for an answer, but I can't work on this one, as my sister-in-law works at the centers. But I can do that for you, and will do that for you, Trevor.
I will specifically say that our lawyer Tyra Taylor worked on this contract with the center's general counsel, and she didn't have any concerns related to the language.
Okay. I know obviously there's a clear emergency need, but would this be able to be held for a week to get an answer from the law department, or no?
I think we rushed it to get it on this agenda because of the final check runs and try to get the centers their advance as soon as possible. I will also say we have been working on some homeless services contracts that had some renovation costs to them, but I mean, those were specifically ARPA dollars. Actually, these are also ARPA dollars. So all of those contracts are still pending to be issued, to release, but there was apparently no issue related to the renovation of those shelters that we're working with.
But this is also funded by the levy, right? Split
They're-
ARPA and levy?
Yeah, 45 ARPA, 55 levy. Majority of the advance is all coming from the ARPA funding.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I mean, I would be okay moving forward with it just because of the clear need for it, but I would still like a
So
sign off by the law department. I
how
know
about
it'll be
we,
after the fact.
how
but-
about we approve it today, and then we won't cut a check until we have law's agreement? How's that?
Will that still give fiscal office enough time to release the check, though? I mean, I don't want to hold that up till
We will
next year,
do,
but,
we will accommodate them.
okay.
Yeah, provided it's a little quicker than, yeah. Okay.
Or they'll get it the first week of January. We open on January 3rd as well for payments.
Well, you need to get it by the end of the year is what you're saying, right?
The money's, well, it's ARPA funding, it can roll over, right? So I don't know
It's not ARPA money, but yeah, it's general.
right,
fund.
it's general fund,
Yeah.
right.
I'm willing to do that if, we can hold a check, or we can just, let's get it done, we'll approve it. Councilwoman, go ahead, you have a question.
Yeah, just quickly, I know we're talking about urgency and needing to get this done, and I do agree this is something that needs to be done. But the start date is September 1st. So if this was such an urgent request, why didn't it come in August?
So so like I said, the original procurement was September 1st.
Right,
And then the centers and ourselves, we have been in negotiations related to the advance and what it was going to be used for since then to try to get these in. So some negotiation time in between there.
Is
There was
anyone-
also actually, this is the second amendment. The first amendment had to go through council because that's where we added the full amounts. Because the emergency purchase was only up to 500,000. The full amount of this contract is over $13 million.
wow. So is anyone going to be paid over the last 90 days, or should this contract read December 1st instead of September 1st?
Well, it's an amendment to a contract already passed, so they're just amending it for additional
Oh, it's
dollars, basically.
Just for a scope change.
Scope
This
change,
doesn't have
sorry.
any additional
You're right, my
funds.
bad. Just a scope change.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mackler, will that work for you, or would you prefer to hold it? I understand the nature. We can, hopefully law can turn it around within a week, and we can cut a check.
I would prefer to hold it. I'm just a little uneasy. It's fairly new, and I mean, right, I don't recall where we, for other things, have agreed to, in addition to the cost that we're paying for the service, to say, okay, we're gonna pay you even more to provide that service. That's where I'm just uncomfortable with moving forward with it, but I also understand the need to get going. Marcos, did we pay out money from that emergency purchase, the 500K that was authorized by?
Not that I'm aware of. We don't pay those invoices in our office, so I'd have to check with Children and Family Services fiscal office, but I don't think we have.
Can we make a contingent upon the law department saying it's
We can do that.
okay to?
Okay. And then we won't give the final approval until that time. So, I mean, we'll approve it today, contingency upon law, looking into it and saying it's legal. What specifically you want law?
Well, let me ask another question, Marco, sorry. In their bid response, did they say, here's how much it's gonna cost to care for the child per day, plus you have to build out?
I'd have to look back at the proposal. I mean, there's a lot of water under the bridge since they proposed that, so I don't specifically know what their total budget was and how it was broken down.
Because right, we had the issue with the other vendor that didn't get the award. I mean, right, this is a pretty sensitive
I understand.
subject, and if they're adding that on after they submitted a bid, that also I'm not comfortable with either.
The proposal was specifically to build out, these T-suites, working with the Cleveland Christian Home space that they acquired. So the proposal does have that information in it. If it was specifically budgeted that way, I don't know.
I mean, as far as ARPA, that's not a concern. It's general fund either way, so that, I'm not worried about
Not
that.
worried about the restrictions on the
No.
ARPA.
So is there a timing component, I guess, is what?
I mean, obviously the vendor wanted to see if they could get the funding as soon as possible, but if we needed to wait to see, spell it out more clearly, we could probably do that. I mean, it is a larger vendor. It's not one of the smaller vendor that,
Right.
needs that money right away.
But they haven't started any of the build-out, have they?
I think they have, actually.
I saw it, okay.
If that's the case, can we hold it until next week?
Yeah, I'm willing to do it. Marcos, is that okay? Let's get law to, Jared, you'll take the lead on that part?
Yes, I certainly will. Well, I'll get that to
You'll
the right
push it
person in
off,
law,
you know what
but
I mean.
I guess I want to make sure, do you want to hold it until law can get you an answer, or are you talking about holding it until next week, just so I'm certain? It could be very quick that they come up with
I think
an
it'll be a
answer.
quick return, so I would just request we hold it until we have the law department.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. I think that's a better idea.
Okay,
That would be preferable.
all right.
That's a good point. Councilman Miller reminded, right, we have next Monday, but then the
Yes.
26th, so hopefully we can get it for next week.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot on that next agenda. So, but that's fine. All right. All right, Marcos, we're gonna hold it then.
All right.
Okay,
We're gonna hold it, or we're gonna hold it pending law approval?
both, till
Okay.
next week.
Okay,
So
I
hopefully we
gotcha.
can get that through next week or get an email going so
Right.
that include the council members here and
Absolutely. Okay.
myself. All right,
Thanks.
all right, thank you. Okay, let's move on to our next item.
Next item, BC 2022-765 is held and was referred to committee.
Okay, and let's move on to the next item.
Next item, BC 2022-766, Sheriff's Department requesting an alternative procurement process which will result in award recommendations to various providers in the total amount not to exceed $20,000 for routine veterinary services for the K-9 unit for the period January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. Family Pet Clinic in the amount not to exceed $10,000. Cloverleaf Animal Hospital in the amount not to exceed $3,000. Metropolitan Vet Clinic in the amount not to exceed $3,000, and providers to be determined for emergency service at nearest vet clinic in the amount not to exceed $4,000.
Chris Costin, Sheriff's Department. We're requesting an alternative procurement approval for the vendors listed plus an open vendor. This is in case we have a dog out somewhere that got hurt or sick, where we could use the closest vet.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Magler.
Chris, what is the federal equitable sharing account?
That is a federal seizure of seizure of federal funds from the Federal Department of Justice that the Sheriff's Office receives.
What's the balance in that fund?
That I do not have with me, but I could get that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, additional questions? Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Lee Tucker. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-767, Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, requesting an alternative procurement process resulting in purchase orders to various licensed providers in the amount not to exceed $250,000 for reimbursement for out-of-home care placement services for the period December 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024.
Good morning again. Marcos Cortez with Health and Human Services on behalf of Children and Family Services. As you are aware, we have brought before you many time-sensitive mission criticals for our emergency placement for some of our high-need kids. Those time-sensitive mission criticals are limited to the $24,999 and can get used pretty quickly, which leaves our vendors getting unpaid for months at a time while we add them to the master. This alt procurement will allow us to be able to pay our vendors more timely while we work to add them to the master. You'll still be able to see those placements as they will be brought forward as purchase orders.
Thank you, Marcos. And I know Marcos worked with Paul in trying to help streamline that a little bit. So are there questions from the board? Councilman.
Could you take me step by step through what the new procedure will be and what it would, and how it would differ from what we currently do?
So currently, we receive in our office, and it could be well after the kid is placed, a time-sensitive mission critical to be able to pay a vendor, add a vendor to service these kids. So then we work then within our office to get the proper documentation in so we can pay them through that emergency time-sensitive mission critical process. While that is happening, we're also working to add them to our master amendment. So they're working, and they can use up that time-sensitive mission critical dollar amount. The purchase, what we would still get that, actually, I don't know if we're still determining if it's going to come to us or to our fiscal office within Health and Human Services. They would get the invoices, and because we have this alternative procurement in place, we could pay those invoices off purchase orders instead of having to do the time-sensitive mission criticals every time they, once we get them.
And how would we see these items at the Board of Control?
We submit purchase orders through, for payment through the Board of Control. They're entered into the OnBase system, and the clerk puts them onto the agenda.
So would it be on,
The consent,
Would it-
yeah.
would it be a voted item?
I don't believe, well, if it's on the consent, it would be.
It would be on the consent agenda under the direct open market purchases, similar to how other departments' purchase
okay.
orders appear.
Okay, so it would be on the consent agenda?
Correct.
Okay.
And Councilman, they'll be tracking it with a spreadsheet, and if they get close to that $250,000, they'll have to come back and amend this amount. But it's a way to, I believe, get our vendors paid timely and, keep services going. So,
Right. And the other hope is, we do have other vendors locally that we want to try to tap into more, so we're not trying to look at vendors outside of Ohio or outside of the county.
Okay, Mr. Mackler, please.
Mike or Marcos, I guess, would this allow the vendor to get paid before the Board of Control approval?
No, they'll put a purchase order through. I mean, they're going to place them. So basically, they're making the decision to go and award, right? So you have a person that,
Right.
and you know better than I do, you have someone you have to put in placement, you're going to send them to this particular place.
Right.
And then when the invoice comes in, they'll be able to pay them.
But
I was just trying to figure out the difference of how we do it now, versus this. I thought it was
Yeah.
a quicker way to pay them this way, but it doesn't seem like it would be faster if it still requires Board of Control.
So the invoice can't necessarily get paid before the Board of Control approves it. It has to go on the consent agenda, and then the purchase order can be issued after it's been approved. One of the big things that this will help with is the dollar amount that we can, that Division of Children and Family Services will have the authority to spend. Some of the recent placements, as costs have risen, have exceeded that $24,999 while the vendor is being added by amendment. So I think this will allow a cushion to pay out more of the invoices that they're receiving while the amendment process occurs. Amendments typically take longer than the time-sensitive mission criticals or these POs. So I think, part of what DCFS talked about with the HHS contracting team was trying to move this stuff forward quicker and also having a longer window to pay while they're added by amendment.
And correct me if I'm wrong, so right now there's a two-step process. We
Mhm.
have to get the time-sensitive
Right.
mission critical approved before we can issue the purchase order. That would do away with that first part, so we can go straight to the purchase order.
So it'll help a little bit on the
Mhm.
speed.
On the
right?
timing.
Yes,
The real benefit is having more than 24,999.
correct.
But I bet it'll cut down 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks of timing too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Councilman.
I'm willing to support this item, but I would like to move an amendment that it be required to be a separate consent agenda item. It would just be a separately numbered item. So, because I don't want it to get lost in a long list of other stuff. Would that be acceptable?
I would look at the,
Will you be able
Yeah,
to?
that would be acceptable. We could have them listed separately. You're still okay with them being part of the consent agenda?
Oh,
but just broken
absolutely.
out? Okay.
Yeah, it can be part of the consent agenda, but typically for today's, we only had the one item, but typically the consent agenda might be 3 or 4 items.
Yes,
So I'm just requesting that it be a separately numbered item within the consent agenda.
we can do that.
Okay, we're good with that.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to make an amendment on that. I think it's just you're asking for a listed,
Just the way
broken
it's
out.
reported out, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that requires an amendment, so, all right, you're willing to do that? Okay. Any additional questions on the item? Seeing none, then I will just make a motion to approve the item, obviously as Councilman Miller requested to have it listed out. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Macular. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next item is the consent agenda item, BC 2022-768.
Okay. Pretty short. Any questions on that item? Mr. Mackler?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if anyone from development's here, but just for the Skill Up program, do we have on average what the previous hourly rate was before they went through the program and what the new average hourly rate is for each one?
Andrea Turry from the Department of Development and the Skill Up Unit. So for Orlando Baking, I don't have the pre and post wages, but I have the differential, and the average is about $3.25 an hour of an increase. For US Cable, it's a $3 an hour increase. Dial Electric is also a $3 an hour increase, and Family Tree Home Care is $5 an hour increase.
Do you know out of the four, how many total employees went through?
Yes, for Orlando, it's 5, US Cable is 2, Dial Electric 3, Family Tree 2.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any additional questions on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will make a motion to approve today's consent agenda item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Today's consent is approved. Other business?
Other business, we have 2 time-sensitive mission critical. BC 2022-769, Office of the Medical Examiner recommend an award on a purchase order number 22004937 to Thermo Electron North America LLC and the amount not to exceed $10,619 for the repair of the analytical auto sampler used by the toxicology department.
Hugh Shannon, Medical Examiner's Office. This was emergency repair to the auto sampler.
Questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Macular. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item's approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2022-770, Office of the Medical Examiner recommending an award on purchase order number 22005189 to Peak Scientific Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $35,536.24 for the purchase of a Genesis XE70 23-volt generator and a 12-month preventative maintenance agreement for use by the toxicology department.
Hugh Shannon again. So we have a number of nitrogen generators that help you run the gas chromatographs in toxicology. We had 3. This was a planned replacement. We were using opioid settlement funds. The reason that we needed to move to the emergency is that we had already had one of the generators fail, a second one failed, so we were running with just the one, so we accelerated this purchase.
Thank you, Hugh. Questions from the board? Yes, Councilwoman.
So given that this is actually a piece of equipment that would have probably needed to be replaced anyway, why is it being paid out of the opioid settlement fund, given those are one-time limited dollars?
So again, we had already planned to replace these generators. It was just that the failures happened quicker than we had anticipated.
If it wasn't for the opioid settlement fund, though, wouldn't you have done this anyway out of the general fund?
Eventually, yeah.
It just seems that opioid dollars are limited, and I'm not sure. Of course this is needed, of course you should do it. I'm just questioning the fund.
These had been prior approved.
Okay.
Mr. Macular, go ahead.
If I can add it, Councilwoman, I want to say it was $300,000 or $400,000. I think that was set aside from the opioid fund for medical examiners' office upgrades to equipment.
Okay, so that was.
I'd have to double check the number, but
Okay.
it was a couple $100,000, I
Right.
believe. They purchased some prior equipment too,
Okay.
upgrades.
All
There-
right.
There might be a little bit left, I'm not sure, but.
Do you have funds left in this account then?
I'll have to double check. I know that what we had planned for and been approved for, we're in the process of purchasing. I'm just not sure where we are in that process. Obviously, I don't believe that we had gotten to the point where we were purchasing the nitrogen generators until these failures happened. We had to
Right.
accelerate.
Okay, well, that's good to know that there was a fund set aside for that.
So do you want an accounting then, Councilwoman? Is that,
No, that's
you're good?
fine. I'm
Okay,
good. Thank
great.
you.
Councilman?
I have a presentational question. It's as to why, since these time-sensitive mission-critical items are now presented essentially in the same way as other agenda items, why do they have to be listed under other business? And why couldn't there just be an item D on the regular agenda that says time-sensitive, mission-critical items, and then E would be the consent agenda?
I don't have a good answer.
I don't either.
Because usually these been walk-ups,
Yeah.
though. We'll see what happens. Generally, you have the walk-up ability for time-sensitive. I think you've got a little bit of advance, maybe a little bit, they missed a deadline and you were able to
Yes.
get it on the meeting.
Yeah.
So maybe that was why it's not part of the normal, but it was just, in the past, as you recall, we would come up at
Yeah.
the end with really no introduction. At least now we're trying to give a little bit
Uh-huh.
of notice. Certainly, can we make a
If-
change or?
If I recall, was it that they started being printed on the agenda at the request of the Board of Control? They weren't printed before, and I think there was an ask to have them included on the printed agenda. If we had the information
If we had
early
the info,
enough.
sometimes we didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Let me research it, and I don't have any opposition to reframing the way it's listed. But let's do a little homework, maybe.
Okay, so I would just put out that I would have no objection, that if you have the information item, they could be put in as a section in the regular agenda rather than having to be other business at the end.
Yeah, maybe right before the consent agenda we'll have it.
Mhm.
Okay, sounds like a great idea. Thank you. Mr. Mackler?
Did we actually get the generator yet? Did we actually have the equipment?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Seeing no further questions, I'll make a motion to approve today's, or this mission critical item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item's approved.
Thank you.
Moving on to any other business?
Yes,
Other,
Oh,
go ahead.
I was gonna say there was no other business, but if you have
Okay.
something to.
Yes, I have one item of business, which is that my dear colleague, Miss Baker, has told me that today is her last Board of Control meeting. And I just want to say that it has truly been an honor and a privilege to serve with Nan on the Board of Control. If I'm correct, you served on the Board of Control for the entire 6 years that you have served as a member of the County Council. And you have served with distinction. You have asked numerous penetrating questions. You've definitely increased everybody's awareness about trying to reduce the number of late contracts and to provide good explanations when it occurs. And I have never seen any time when you asked any question or voted on any item with any other motivation than what's best for the county. And I think the Board of Control is never going to be the same. And I just want to say what an honor and a privilege it has been to serve with you, and wish you the very best of success in the future.
You know, if I just may say, it is probably going to be my last. I have a conflict on the last agenda that you have. Be here on Friday. But, yeah, 6 years, wow. 6 years is a blink. It's hard to believe that that time has passed. And I am sincerely grateful that even the questions that I ask, always, they were answered in detail, and with no attitude. I mean, it was just, thank you for asking, here's the answers, and if there's follow-up questions, you're more than receptive in accepting it. So that's not always what you find in places where sometimes you ask a little bit more of a deeper dive in the requests that we're asked to support. So thank you for that. I will miss all you guys. Keep up the good work. I know with Dale and Trevor and whoever takes my place here next year of all the council members that will be asked, I'm sure it will continue And I wish you all luck in 2023. So thank you for allowing me to be here and be part of your Board of Control.
Thank you, Nan. I view it as a partnership, so wish you the best.
Mr. Chair, if I
Please.
could kind of dovetail onto the end of that, again, farewell, Councilwoman. It's been a pleasure to serve with you. Since that will leave a vacancy from the council side, one thing that we've discussed, we already canceled the Board of Control meeting for December 27th at the very end of the year. There is a discussion to cancel the January 3rd meeting. January 2nd is a holiday. The meeting would be January 3rd. That'll give council a chance to have their organizational meeting and select a new representative. So I think we'd like to cancel that meeting for January 3rd, and then the first meeting would be Monday, January 9th next year.
Council team, sound good? Excellent. Okay.
The organizational meeting is on January 3rd, so that would, the week there would be appreciative.
Great. We'll be happy to abide. Okay. Well, only thing left now is public comment.
No public comment?
Okay. I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Absolutely. Seconded by Councilwoman Baker. All in favor to adjourn, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.